Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works, and this is part 2 of us building a sleeper out of this Dodge Ram show truck. And if you've watched part 1, you'll know that we're basically going to make this into a very well-worn, plain Jane, mid-90s Dodge pickup truck, while retaining, of course, the stock, not really stock, while retaining the Viper engine that the kit comes with. You can see it right there. So one of the big things I talked about in the first episode was coming up with a nice set of steelies. So you can see I've got a few things that are encased in mold builder. So we're going to peel those off now. So we've got our Viper engine mostly done. Just need to do spark plug wires and the exhaust manifolds. And let's see what our molds for our steelies going to look like. So we get that off and try to focus. That looks pretty good, actually. And I had somebody in the comments say that this is probably a 6-lug wheel. That's not going to be a big problem because, of course, we're replacing the center part, the very center area, with this part here. So this is 5-lug. And this is the one with the grease fitting on it, the grease cap. And the other one, there we go. Focus, there we go. So there's our other one. So casting these is going to be interesting because I'm just basically going to have to put a little drop of resin on there, just enough to kind of create a little button. So I'm getting ready to put spark plug wires in here. And there's, as I've said earlier, there's no distributor cap. Obviously, there's some sort of ignition module back here. All pictures I've seen of this engine, the spark plug wires just kind of come back this way. So I've been drilling holes in basically in these little divots right here for the spark plug wires. And you can see I've got a little micro drill here. And that's the same diameter as the monofilament plastic that both Natasha and I use for spark plug wires. The nice thing is you get a little dip of super glue and you can just slide it in there and it holds. So I'm starting to do the underframe and the suspension here. And I've already said I want to raise the ride height from what the model kit has you build it, because that's lowered. It's not massively lowered. It's not like it's dragging its belly on the ground, but it is lower than it should be. So if we pull this part off here, you can see Revell has you put these nice upper suspension arms on. Those are quite nice parts. This is the lower suspension. Of course, this is where it attaches to the K-frame. There's the K-frame right there. Or the K-member, I should say. Because I know somebody in the comments is going to say, it's a K-member, not a K-frame, even if I correct myself. So anyway, this part pops on. Like that. It looks quite good. Certainly looks the part. There's only one thing I'm disappointed in Revell here, is you can see here that there's these cylinders going from the lower control arms to the upper arms there. And would it have killed them to give us those parts separately as a simulated coil spring? I know coil springs in model form aren't as see-through as they should be, but it's certainly better than some round pegs. And this isn't the only kit that suffers from this. The Starskin Hutch car is the same, where it should have coil springs. It just has these round pegs. So there's two ways I can adjust the ride height. The difficult way would be to cut here and here, reposition all of this at a slightly different angle, and to do it properly. Or, you see we've got these pegs on here that the wheels are going to go on. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the pegs off, and I'm going to move them down a few millimeters, And that should be enough to adjust our ride height up to where it should be. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go the easy route. Because if Revell went and cheaped out and gave us 2 massive pegs instead of coil springs, I could take this little shortcut and just move the pegs down. So this is the kit positioning for that front axle spindle. And you can see I've offset it down. Probably, I've basically split the difference so that it looks like half of it's unsupported, but I'm going to be putting some Tamiya cement in there, and that'll help beef it up. But for now, it's just on there with some testers. But you can see the midline of the axle kind of comes down to where the original spindle was beefy here. And none of this is precise. So long as I've jacked up the truck a little bit, it doesn't have to be like a 4x4. This is only a 2-wheel drive truck. But it should be a little bit higher than what the kit has us build it as. Here's the rear axle, and I've got a comparison here between this is the way it comes in the kit, and then I've basically just added a bushing here, and that once again will increase our ride height just a little bit. And this is basically what the easiest way to raise a real vehicle such as a pickup truck, you know, when you're adding ground clearance for an off-roader, is you just put a block between the leaf spring and the axle. It's very primitive, but it's not like this is really going to have to go off-road and perform. I'm just moving the axle down a little bit. I could have gone to the frame and put in a bushing here, but you can see the leaf spring actually attaches to the top of the frame. So that would have been a little bit more complicated. It was easier just to simply put a block here, and I'll be putting one on the other side. So what we've got here is one of the wheel castings out of the mold, and it's I think I'm only going to be able to get one more wheel out of this. It's looking rough already. Sometimes the molds hold up really well, and sometimes they don't. But anyway, the offending part is the very center. You can see we've got this rectangle, and that represents like the bracket that holds it to the underside of the truck. And not only that, this is got an awful lot of wheel nuts on it, more than what we want. As one person in the comments in the last episode said, you know, you want a 5-lug pattern. There's quite a few more nuts on this one. So here we can see I've cleaned this up and I've scraped away everything on the center. Now my original intent was to use a much smaller casting with 5 wheel nuts to set in there. Well, I couldn't get that to separate cleanly from the mold each time, so I've given up on that. And what I've done is this. So the detail isn't quite as fine, obviously, as the part that I wanted to copy, but you can see that I've got this as being a front wheel. You've got the grease fitting that actually protrudes through the wheel for the end of the axle. And then I've got 4 chunks of rod on there. Now they're representing our wheel nuts. I know they're not hexagonal, but by the time this is all painted a grungy black and with a lot of rust on it, it should look fine. The rear wheels, I'll end up just putting a very small disc of plastic in the center, and that will represent the center of those wheels. This is one of our rear wheels. As you can see, I don't have that little cover over what normally the cotter pin and all that stuff would go. Grease cap, I think it's called. I don't know. I'm sure somebody will correct me and tell me I'm an idiot because I don't know the exact name of it. But I ended up putting basically a donut of plastic in there so that we can represent the hole in the middle of the wheel that, you know, helps to center it. Once again, you can see I've got, you know, 5 bits of rod on there that represent our wheel nuts. Now this is one of the front wheels, and it's been painted up with semi-gloss black, and it is going to be kind of rusty and crusty. So I think overall they're going to look a whole lot better than if I had have just gone with the alloy wheels. Now, you know what? I know alloy wheels were on so many vehicles that, you know what, you could probably easily find a bunch at the wrecker, but I just like the idea of this thing having some plain old rusty steelies on it, so I'll show you the other ones in a second after they get painted up in semi-gloss black, but I think that looks like I wanted it to look. And here is two of our steelies prior to being rustified. This, of course, is the front, and that's the rear. And a little bit of dust and crap on that one. There we go. But I think they basically captured the look I was after. So this is not for the squeamish. I haven't done anything to this side yet. I've started painting the underside of the bed, but if we flip it around... you can see I've started distressing the body to make it look rusty. And the thing about rust is by the time you actually end up getting the blow through, the metal or what's left is very, very thin. So you just can't drill a hole. What you have to do is you have to thin down the plastic. So if I flip it around here, hopefully you can be able to see what we've done here. Come on, focus. It's having a hard time focusing because of the white plastic. But what I've done is anywhere where I wanted to create a rust hole, what I did is I took a Dremel with a kind of a grinding bit, and I just kind of ground away the plastic until there was very, very little left, and then pretty much just stabbed it with an X-Acto knife blade to break through it. Now I have a little bit more I want to do on this side. I want to do another bit of rust here. Back here is another area. Now, some of you may be saying to me, well, you're going to be painting all the panels different colors like somebody's replaced the panels. Well, why would they be rusty? See, the story behind this truck is the guy who owns it, he's like the third owner of it. And by the time he got it, there was major rust on it. So with all the best intentions, his plan was, all right, I'm going to find panels of the junkyard that are in much better shape than what I've got. And that's what he did. He replaced the bed with a much better bed. He replaced the doors, the front fenders, the basic cab itself. He didn't replace it. But as always with good intentions, he was planning on, priming everything and giving it a nice coat of whatever color he wanted. He never got that far. He had to use it. He had to drive it on a daily basis. So even though he had gotten the panels replaced with better panels, this is now 2 or 3 years down the road. And these panels that were not new have started rusting through. And it's a sad story, and it happens to, people in Eastern Canada and, the northeastern United States. Pretty much anywhere where we have severe winters and we use salt on our roads. So we've got more Swiss cheesing going on here and there. And now I'm going to move on to the other side. These are all generic areas that vehicles tend to rust out. Some years of Dodge pickup trucks are really, really bad up here. Cab doors on most vehicles are usually very bad. Same thing, cab corners. Now, whether or not your particular Dodge pickup truck of this vintage rusted out exactly this way, I don't know. I don't care. This is based on just not only this particular generation of Dodge pickup truck, but many others, plus pickup trucks and vehicles in general where they tend to rust out. So that's what we're going for here. So this side is ready for me to start dremeling the inside in order to thin it out to start rustifying it. So I've now got the driver's side perforated, and there's the passenger side once again. There's one other part I feel that needs to be attacked, and that would be the tailgate. And oftentimes the bottom edge here takes a real beating. And I think what happens is water gets in, water and salt get in, and it can't get out the bottom. And these areas just really, really take a pounding. Not just on pickup trucks, minivans, full-size vans, the rear doors, the bottom really, really takes a hammering. I think I can show this better on camera than the inside of the body, because at least the camera wants to focus here. So this rough area here, this is on the inside of the panel, and it's all been done with a Dremel cutter. Pretty much anyone is fine for doing this sort of work. You just have to make sure you don't overdo it and end up with blobs of melted plastic. So a light touch is what you want to do. So this needs to be a little bit thinner before I can start, breaking through and simulating the rust damage. But the main thing is you want all the edges that are going to be rust to be very, very thin. There's our tailgate done. And if you think this looks bad, I've seen far, far, far worse. As a matter of fact, the tailgate on my black Caravan is probably way worse than that. So, and oftentimes the upper 90% of a body panel will be fine. It's only just the bottom edge that just really gets chewed up by the salt. So, something we have to live with here. Now, I know it seems odd that in a project that I'm trying to make this thing look as bedraggled as possible, well, it's not going to be shiny and beautiful. The grill needs to be chrome. Now, I know this is a plastic part on the real truck, and that's the thing is so many Dodge Ram pickup trucks of this vintage had a big chrome grill. So I'm going to be putting bare metal foil on this, and let's see how that turns out. So here's the bare metal foil applied. Now I'm going to paint out basically the openings with flat black. So there we go. That is the way I want the grill to look. Chrome with basically black inlets. So I don't think I've shown our chassis and underside here since it was pretty much fully assembled. You can see we've got the engine in place. The exhaust lines up nicely. I was debating whether to go with yellow or red for the shock absorbers. Ended up going with red. I'm going to be dirtying those up quite a bit. And I'm going to be putting quite a bit of dry brushing of rust on this. The exhaust is not going to be heavily rusted because it would have been stainless steel. And it does eventually get crappy looking, but not really horrible. So that's how our underside looks, and you can see there is the engine. I will not be, other than some washes, I won't be making this look too terrible because when they transplanted the engine, I figure they cleaned up and painted the engine bay. So we're not as far along as it looks. I've basically got the underside here just test fit into the body. Of course, we can see all the rust damage that I've simulated there. And we'll just pop the body out of the way here. So you can see I've done a lot of dry brushing of rust. Basically on any of the parts that would be metal. The fuel tank, as I've said before, that's plastic. These inner wheel wells here, they would be plastic as well. I've gone easy on the exhaust, mostly because, as I've said many times before on newer vehicles, certainly everything after the mid-80s, most of the exhaust is stainless steel, but if something has rotted out, it usually gets replaced with aluminized stuff, and that stuff does rust out really quickly. But I basically, the little bit of rust I put on, I kind of concentrated around the joints. Even with stainless steel, that's where you tend to see it going. So, and if we look at the side view, you can see what our plain steel wheels look like, and I think they've turned out pretty good. I'm really happy with those. I think it was worth the effort to go with steelies, and I think this is a good place to leave this off. The next episode, of course, is going to be the interior, and what's really going to be interesting, of course, is going to be painting all of the mismatched body panels. That's going to be kind of cool because it's going to be paint these ones, mask them off. Paint this, mask that off. So anyway, as I said, it's probably a good place to leave this off. Thanks for watching, and until next time, just keep on modeling.